But the dedicated seeker, the person whose questions are persistent and ever deepening, will inevitably find that the quest for a better way in material affairs broadens to include the meaning and nature of all life. The sincere search for a better way leads to questions of purpose and existence. That is a quote by that is a quote by one of my favorite authors, Mitch Horowitz, about seeking and just finding answers. Hello, my name is Mitch, and welcome to my channel. I use this channel to talk about my journey with mental health and my path to become a seeker, or what I would consider a better seeker. Not that there is a qualitative aspect to it, but wanting to just be a better seeker. Yeah, just seeking better answers to the questions that I ask and the better questions and better answers to the questions I have for myself. I didn't share last week's video that much just because I wasn't, even though I posted it and I'm proud of myself for doing it, I was not as happy with the sort of audio and video components that I feel like I'm capable of. And I feel a little bit better than this. I think this looks okay. Yeah. Crystal clear. Gotta look good for camera, baby. Okay. Yeah. I think that's it. I feel like an imposter a lot. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Not just imposter syndrome, because I mean, you can just, again, Google it. I feel like everyone at one point on YouTube or another has talked about this, so it feels like it's very much in the zeitgeist of our lexicon as a online community of what it is to be an imposter, or like having that imposter syndrome, feeling that I'm underqualified for everything that I do, honestly. Not even just like the jobs that I have, but just in every capacity, feeling a little bit like I'm an imposter. But I want to think about it now as fuel for growth, right? There's that sort of joke on the internet. It's like, yeah, you are an imposter, and lean into that imposter syndrome, or it's like you have fooled everyone around you into thinking that you're this thing. Good for you. And so I don't know, but yeah, there is that idea that fake it till you make it, right? But how do you know when you make it? How do I know when I've made it if I'm always faking it? Will I ever really know? I mean, that's kind of what I continue to ask myself, right? Oh, is this actually making it? Am I actually making it? Or am I just faking it this whole time? But you'll be proud of me. You'll be proud of me. I took notes. I made some notes of what talking points, so you will see me you'll see me reference them over here. I think we all can feel like this, right? Honestly, I think I'd be more concerned if I ran into someone who didn't feel like an imposter at one point or another in their lives. Someone who has overcome that, I believe them fully. And I'm not here to dispute or refute that at all. If you don't feel like that, oh my God, good for you, truly. If you've never felt like that, I'm concerned. Because my thesis or my theory behind this imposter syndrome is it's like, well, maybe the reason we feel like this, I'll keep it on me. Maybe the reason I feel like I am an imposter is because I'm putting myself in positions of discomfort or uncomfort and to rise up to those things. Whereas if I'm sitting in something where I feel comfortable, I don't feel as much of an imposter. And that's like this ebb and flow, right? Because it is nice to feel secure. Security is lovely. But when is it security and when is it, I was talking a little bit about this last video as well. Like when is it security and when is it stagnation, right? When is it something that is nice and secure, but you're still able, you're still able to propel yourself forward, but when is it just stagnant? When have you stopped growing? Maybe it's about this. Maybe it is about putting myself in positions where I do feel like an imposter. I also didn't realize that there are 5 different versions of the imposter syndrome. And as soon as I read them, I was like, yep, yep, yep. There's the perfectionist, right? This idea that if I don't do it perfectly, it's wrong. and therefore I'm an imposter because I've done it wrong. And then there's the super person who's, if I'm not naturally gifted at this thing, I then have to, or if I feel like I am an imposter in an environment or in a situation, I have to work harder than everyone else, show up first, stay late, be the last to leave, first one there, last one home, kind of feeling, um, just to sort of prove myself in that capacity. If I don't have what I would think is the ability, I can prove myself in the quantity in which I show up. Number 3 is the natural genius. This is one I didn't think that I really went with, but the more I was reading about it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. um, natural genius. But this feeling of, again, having that sort of natural gift for something, feeling something that feels like it's in my bones and I can just do it without really thinking about it, and be good at it. That's the key difference. It's not just doing something without feeling like or doing something naturally, but also doing it well. And that natural genius, the stopping point for those in the imposter syndrome is what happens when you try something that you're not good at or you don't have that natural genius toward. And then do you shy away from those things? Do I shy away from those things? Yes. Yes, I do. Then there's that soloist, right? Number 4, the soloist, which is I'll do it all myself. I don't know how to ask for help, or I won't ask for help, or the times that I have asked for help, it doesn't live up to my standard. So I'll just do it myself. And then number 5, the expert. In that, in everything that I do, I have to be an expert in it. I have no capacity or ability to learn about it or be a work in progress, or feeling that I have to know everything about the thing that I'm interested in fully. I have to be an expert, right? um, and I've noticed that, obviously, I don't think every time that I feel like an imposter, I feel all 5 of them at once. Doy. But I have felt all 5 of these in one aspect or another. And I've noticed that recently too, of how much of my life has really been at the mercy of imposter syndrome. How much I've prevented myself from doing something because of that imposter syndrome, or how much I've dictated my life because of that imposter syndrome, instead of just trying it and seeing what happens. What do we fall, Master Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. What do we fall, Master Bruce? To pick ourselves back up, yeah? It's early days. In that article that I was reading about this, it talks about it all culminating in kindness. And that each of these types of imposter syndrome, a workaround of getting around them, is being kind to ourselves and being kind to myself. And by being kind to myself, that's how I can better show up. It was also talking about celebrating our wins, talking about it, talking about feeling like an imposter. I think because it is a surprisingly universal feeling, the more I talk about it, the more I experience the truth that other people feel this way too, which is nice and not as isolating, which I think a lot of the struggles that a lot of us have with mental health really fall victim to that isolationist mindset, where it is, I'm the only person in the world going through this right now. No one is absolutely going through this either, which is kind of true because you are your own person and you have your own experiences. So you are going through something that is unique to you, but it's more than likely kind of similar to a lot of what other people are going through. And certainly not to make it qualitative, but man, it's easy to eat some humble pie when I stop for a second and read the news, try to zoom out from people around me and start to zoom into people whose experiences are completely different than mine and see the struggles that are happening through them. I mean, here in the US, everything that's been going on with the Supreme Court recently, and how Project 2025 is something that will, if it does go into play, irrevocably impact women, people of color, the queer community, which I'm a part of. And so I would be impacted in that way, but I'm, heavy air quotes, one of the lucky ones or a passing one, right? I can walk down the street, and if I just decide to dress a certain way, I wouldn't be harassed. And some people don't have that privilege. I mean, God, everything that's happening in Gaza, it is this double edge because at times it is the source of my liberation for my own mental issues, in that, oh, okay, I can work with these. I can approach this with a lot more kindness to myself because the objective severity of them are considerably less than someone who is struggling to eat, struggling to find shelter, struggling to know if they will literally be alive tomorrow. Subjectively, it can be challenging as well because my empathy can extend and extend only so much into not knowing the lived experience. I can imagine and empathize with that suffering as best as I can, but I can only know so much, and that is maybe a personal failing. I don't know. Or even something that's worth exploring is if I can expand that empathy even more and compassion even more. Because then the other edge too is that these are so wildly massive issues to where any idea or any possible solution feels so outside of me and outside of my ability to do anything about it. And so I'm sort of staring into this void. I think I've used that metaphor before, but staring into this void of suffering and not knowing what to do about that. How do I do something? Because you know, I donate money when I can. I try to I vote. I try to be a good person and help people in need when I can. But the hard part is that it ultimately never feels like it's enough in this world, and that creates this bounce back of spiraling or suffering, where it is that what's the point of it all? Because no matter what I do, or no matter how hard I try to do the right thing or be a good person, people are always going to get hurt, and people are always going to suffer. And I know, Viktor Frankl talks about creating meaning out of that suffering, and I think it's something to say, of making that purpose out of the suffering. But it is important to be judicious about that mindset and maintain the personalization of it. Because for me to derive meaning out of someone else's suffering or some other suffering that's happening outside of me is, I think, immensely selfish. But I can understand how that external suffering has an impact on me, and how it is a propellant for my desire to make a change and to do something about it. Yeah, I don't know when enough is enough, which lovingly it never will be, because to be human is to suffer. I think in every sort of religious practice and every sort of spiritual doctrine, there is the notion of how to handle and deal with suffering because it is inevitable no matter what. I think we can try to pretend that suffering doesn't exist, or try to pretend that suffering will always yield a lesson, sure. But at the same time, that's sometimes it feels dispassionate to look at suffering and be, oh, what's the lesson in that? Instead of just settling in to that suffering and feeling with that person or with that situation what that suffering is. And maybe that's the lesson in and of itself of empathy and compassion. And even in this, I feel like an imposter, because every day of my life has been nothing but a privileged one. Yeah, I've had my own struggles, and yeah, I've had my own suffering. And I think this is a salve for that for me, of trying to be more curious about it and be more exploratory with that suffering or with my own suffering. But I have had such a privileged life, and that's been my own really big burden is gratitude. I don't have my gratitude is atrocious. I'm just such an ungrateful little pissant a lot of times that, yeah, if I'm not careful, that gratitude will come back to bite me, or that lack of gratitude will come back to bite me. And that's just a truth. And so I'm working on trying to have gratitude for myself and for my experience, and know that to bemoan and labor inside of my own privilege is not helpful to anybody at all. It's important to acknowledge it, yes, but to only acknowledge it or to use it as a vessel for a means of not improving or growing is not the point, not the issue. When I can use that privilege to the benefit of others and therefore selfishly benefiting myself, because the best way to help someone else, the best way to help yourself, the best way to help myself is to help someone else. But growth and growing isn't exponential. It is nonlinear, but that persistence is the important part, right? Persistence being the key, where it is just trying to build that engine of discovery through persistence, and the growth will come if I'm patient and trying to be patient. I kind of talked about a little bit of these things in this article about how to mitigate the imposter syndrome. Because I guess maybe that'll always be this feeling of coming back to it. And so maybe it's coming back to it, but not hanging out in that imposter syndrome feeling for long. Because again, I think that if I'm putting myself in that position of feeling like an imposter, it must mean I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone, which I do think is good. But talking about it, yes, acknowledging wins, acknowledging those things that I have done that are wins or things that are good. And it's like, okay, I have done that at least. Reframing is one. And oh my God, reframing. My therapist will be so happy that I'm even mentioning this out loud. Reframing is so important and something that I try to do all the time with my thoughts, of having a thought, catching that thought if it's, something that I'm trying to reframe, recognizing where that thought came from and then making the reframe around it. For example, I'm an imposter, and then stopping like, what does an imposter mean? Or how do I feel like I'm an imposter in this scenario, whatever scenario? Like right now, yeah, I'm not a YouTuber, or these videos are stupid and no one's ever going to watch them and nothing's ever going to come of this. And I'm just going to lose this drive to make these, like I've lost my drive to do everything in my life. And that's the thought to catch, right? It's like, okay, why do I think that this is the thing? This is something else that I'll fall into of dropping or giving up. Or why do I even think that I'm giving up all this other stuff? When that reframe is, I can be excited about making these videos now, regardless of their outcome. And it sometimes helps. Sometimes it doesn't. But then maybe that's just the opportunity to reframe and reframe and reframe over and over and over again. What I didn't realize when I started reframing too, with and talking about the it's fixed. Talking about this with my therapist as well is that once you reframe a thought, or like once you reframe a pattern of thinking, it doesn't mean that it goes away, right? It's not like, haha, fixed, done, check it off, check me out. It just means that it'll show up in other ways, which is frustrating, because then I'll think, oh, I'm good, I got this, I don't need that, or I'm fine. And then boom, that same thought manifests in a completely different way or a completely new way. And it's like, here we are again. Great. So, yeah, helping others was another one. A good way to get out of my own head and out of my own way is to help someone else. I've been thinking about this a lot recently too, of how I want to help others because I really like the feeling of helping others selfishly. Oh my God. Oh, oh, ooh, it feels so good to help somebody. But I don't know how in a specific way, or like what's the specific way in which I want to help people. And maybe that's the point, is that it doesn't have to be specific, or the helping is the specificity, and the means of that help will reveal itself as long as I continue to try to pursue helping in all that I do. And maybe that's my fast route for authenticity. Look at me. Look at us making these discoveries in the moment. And then last one that this article talked about is the power of positivity, which is just positive thinking, right? Which is pretty simple on its surface when you think about it. It's like, oh, no duh. In order to feel better about a situation or to feel less like an imposter, I just have to have positive thoughts or positive thinking. And a part of me agrees with that. I think another part that I try to think about or be mindful of is the spiritual bypassing of positive thinking, where it's I will positively think myself away from doing any type of deep work or any type of work on myself, just because I'm thinking, oh yeah, it'll all work out. It'll all be fine. It'll all be fine. Which I think it will, of course. But, or I try, yeah, I want to believe that. And I do, I think, at my core, ultimately, I do think it'll all work out in the ways that are either known or unknown to me. But for me, at least, I find that I use positive thinking as a means to avoid progress with myself, progress with doing the thing that I set out to do. I made this post on my socials at Mitch-is-Mitch-is. I'll put it up here, right here. I made a post about this of like, what do you do when it feels like the thing that you're passionate about is so far away? Or I'm just getting distracted even right now. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. Or like I don't know if that persistence what that persistence means or what that persistence really is supposed to feel like. Even if it's about whatever that supposition is, if it's supposed to feel like something other than doing a little bit every day or doing a little bit when I can. Cuz I don't do things that are good for my growth every day. God no. I wish I did. I'm trying to. I've noticed too that I'm a lot less positive than I used to be in my thinking. Or maybe I've never been positive at all and I was just faking it all the time, but I haven't made it yet, so I'm getting tired of faking it. But I wanted to just make sure that I am still trying and not giving up. I mean, this is part of it, right? Of that accountability, of persistence, of doing something that has this sort of tangible result, creating more content, good or bad, whatever, or just making this content. And that persistence being the thing, maybe, or just, yeah, bringing it back to the beginning. Seeking. I'm just a seeker. I seek to know answers. I seek to know my purpose. I seek to know the reason that I'm in this life and in this path and in this journey. What is the reason behind it? And I know I can make that meaning myself. And I don't have to seek for something that already exists inside of me. But I notice that I often crave affirmation or confirmation, spiritual, universal or not, of, oh, this is it. This feels like the right thing. Maybe I have those things, but I just don't register them again because I don't practice gratitude. So it's hard for me to sort of become aware of when those things pop up. But I'll keep asking the question, I guess, because it's kind of fun. And especially with the matters of this, it's like I can ask these questions continually and continually and continually. And what's great, I guess, is that only I can really answer them for myself. And so I can ask it as much as I want. And then I get to figure it out. Or I get to make that answer for myself. Ha ha ha, delusion be great. because ultimately this is my life and it's now or never, and I ain't gonna live forever.
It's my life, it's now or never.
Because the fact is, I am unique. And you are unique too. And that can be a minimizing thought, I know, because it is unique and special are different. And I think that sometimes we have so much of a shared experience, especially now post-internet, that it can be abundantly clear that our experience maybe isn't necessarily special, but it is unique because there's only one me, just like there's only one you. Ultimately, we are beyond both of those things, and we are the same thing looking at each other. But I'm wearing this suit and you're wearing yours. And I think that uniqueness is worth exploring. Well, that's all I got for today. Just a little quickie, maybe. I don't know how long this one is. I love you. You are not alone. If you are struggling, as always, let me know in the comments below, and I will help you in the best way that I can. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And so it's said again, I love you. Okay, bye.